Good morning. I'd like to call the MetroPlan Orlando Board meeting of March 8th, 2023 to order. At this time, I want to remind everyone, if you can, please silence your electronic devices. And please don't forget, when we are responding, to hit the red button so all of us can hear you. We will have two opportunities at this meeting for public comment. Public comments on action items appearing in today's agenda are heard before we get to action items, and then public comments of the general nature are heard near the end of the meeting. Anyone attending today's meeting in person and who wishes to make a public comment is asked to complete a speaker's card. These are available at the reception desk and on the table near the door. Cards should be given to Ms. Lisa Smith. Members of the public who are attending online and wish to make a comment should fill out an electronic speaker card. At this time, I'm going to ask Commissioner Zimbauer to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner. We're going to start off today by welcoming two new board members. At their February 9th meeting, CFX appointed Commissioner Arrington as their representative to the MetroPlan Board. He is not quite here yet. And they've also been designated an alternate. I'm not going to welcome him because he's not here. So we're going to move forward to the Transportation Disadvantaged Local Coordinating Board. The TDLCB met on February 9th. Mayor Bates was the chair of that committee and has a report for us this morning. Mayor Bates, you're recognized.
Thank you. The TDLCB met Thursday, February 9th. We had a pretty full agenda. We received a report from Ms. Marilyn Baldwin, chairperson of the Quality Assurance Task Force. Our agenda items included acknowledgement of the summary of the public comments received at our November public workshop. We approved the minutes of our November 30th TDLCB meeting. During officer elections, Commissioner Myra Uribe was elected vice chairman. With her appointment to the TDLCB, Commissioner Castano will assume the role of chairperson for the remainder of 2023. We also approved the 2023 TDLCB membership certification. The 2023 QATF membership was approved along with the new chair and vice chair of that committee. We also approved the 2023 TDLCB bylaws, grievance procedures, and grievance committee members. Our final action item was approval of the recommendation to redesignate Lynx a community transportation coordinator. The memorandum of agreement has been executed and transmitted to the Commission for Transportation. Our presentations included an annual Sunshine Law refresher, an update from the Quality Assurance Working Group, and a community transportation coordinator update. The next TDLCB meeting is scheduled for May 11th. This is my final report as the LCB chair. All others will be by Chair Olga Castano. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Bates. At this time, are there any questions or comments for Mayor Bates? Thank you, Mayor. Congratulations to Commissioner Castano. I look forward to working with you on this committee. All right, we're going to move on to the Central Florida MPO Alliance. The Central Florida MPO Alliance met on February 10th. Commissioner Moore and Commissioner Castano represented MetroPlan at the meeting. Commissioner Moore has a report for us this morning. Commissioner Moore, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you so much. The Central Florida MPO Alliance met on February 10th, and we held our 2023 officer election. And I was elected the MetroPlan Orlando chairperson. Commissioner Craig Estep from Lake Sumter MPO was elected the vice chair. And Mayor Chris Cloudman from the River to Sea TPO is the secretary treasurer. The only other action item was approval of our previous meeting minutes. And we were privileged to have 3 presentations, which included the kickoff of the regional project prioritization process, an update on the development of the transportation systems management operations list of priority projects, and active transportation plans for MetroPlan Orlando, Space Coast, Lake Sumter MPO, and the River to Sea Loop Alliance. And I'll get off script a little bit. It was just really exciting to hear how well the trails were being developed in all these other counties, and I certainly learned a few things from what the other areas were doing. The next Alliance meeting will be held here at Metro Plan Orlando, April 14th, and that concludes my report, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Moore. Are there any questions or comments for Commissioner Moore? Fantastic. Sounds like exciting news. Before I hand over to the Executive Director, I want to also announce on Monday, March 6th, Congressman Darren Soto, Mayor Buddy Dyer, Mayor Jerry Demings, and Kevin Tebow, head of GOA, with Carson there in spirit, welcomed the new $69 million to the airport to complete the pedestrian bridge, which will officially connect cars, trains, and planes. They already have a contract out. We look forward to seeing this move together. I think they said ambitiously by 2015. So this is fantastic. In addition to that, they also added 4 gates with the capacity of up to 8 planes at a time with these 4 gates with this funding. So this is a great time for the airport and the new Terminal C. So we thank all the local leadership.
Here in this room, so.
Fantastic, great day. And that is the end for my announcements. I'm going to now recognize Mr. Gary Hutman for his announcements.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairwoman Uribe and board members. We do not have any board alternates with us this morning, but we do have Mr. Jack Adkins here representing the Florida Department of Transportation in place of Secretary Tyler, who is, I understand, stuck in Tallahassee for a bit. We're joined by some special guests this morning. First of all, the new Executive Director of the Central Florida Expressway Authority, Michelle Mikesh, is here. So Michelle, thank you for being here. I know that it's been a busy week for you, so thanks for joining us. I'd also like to recognize Sarah El Badri. Many of you may remember Sarah from her time as the chair of the CAC and her attendance, although mostly virtual at the time, at the Metro Plan board meetings. Sarah is now the Deputy District Director and Director of Constituent Services for Congressman Frost. So thanks, Sarah, for being here. We also have a new DOT liaison that I'd like to introduce, John Scarf. John joined the department recently and will be assigned as the Metro Plan board and committee liaison with the Florida DOT. The 2023 legislative session is underway. We were planning a trip to Tallahassee, some of the board members, Virginia and myself, on April 4th and 5th, but we learned late last week, and it was confirmed yesterday, that the elected officials are pretty much going to leave town on the 4th for Passover and then Easter, and not return until after Easter weekend. So that trip, we need to look for an alternative to that or decide what to do, but we'll be in touch with your offices on that. The MPOAC Institute, I've talked about this a number of times at board meetings. The Orlando session is scheduled for April 14th and 15th, and the Tampa session for May 5th and 6th. We have some interest in that. We have Commissioner Zembauer is confirmed registered for Orlando, and I'm going to learn on Friday if they're going to open up seats so we can have multiple board members. Hopefully that will work out. And then I want to remind you that that April 14th is an evening event, just a social. And then the 15th, it's a day long of training. So it's a 1-day training session. I want to say a little bit about our federal certification. That's coming up, and we do this every 4 years. We undergo a mandatory federal certification with representatives from the Federal Highway Administration and the Federal Transit Administration. So a team representing those agencies will visit us next Wednesday, March 15th, for an all-day meeting here. We'll begin at 9 o'clock with a public meeting wherein they'll take and hear comments from the public, our committee members and others, talking about the process. They do not want to hear about projects that people like or dislike. They want to hear about the process. So we'll be hosting that from 9 to 10 is the public meeting, and then the remainder of the day from 10 to 5 is scheduled to review our work and to certify us as following the transportation planning laws and regulations. And then finally, we met with DOT last week, some of the MetroPlan staff, to talk about their resurfacing program. And this is for projects that will be designed in 2025 and constructed in 2027. And they're really soliciting input from the local jurisdictions, and that would be the engineers and the planners in order to include other items in their scopes for these resurfacing projects, as long as they're in the region. So we're going to be convening a kind of a workshop here sometime later this month or in early April. And the affected jurisdictions are all three counties. We'll be reaching out to all three counties. And then in Orange County, it would be the city of Orlando and the city of Winter Park that will have projects in their jurisdictions. In Seminole County, it will be the city of Sanford, Altamont Springs, and Oviedo. So just wanted to make you aware of that in case you want to pass that on to key staff members that really need to be here for that. And again, we'll be working with each of the jurisdictions on that. And then the supplemental folders this morning located at your seat contain just a single item, which is an updated version of the signal retiming infographic that was included in your packages. Madam Chair, that completes my announcements this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Huntman. Are there any questions or comments for Mr. Huntman at this time? Seeing none, we're going to move on to Mr. Jack Atkins, representing Secretary Tyler from FDOT.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Board, it's a pleasure to be here this morning. I'm going to tag on to what Mr. Huntman was talking about, our 3R program, our resurfacing program, or resurfacing, restoration, and rehabilitation. And it's an integral part of our program. It's in fact, our materials and research office up in Gainesville take a look at our roads. They actually drive all the roads every year, the airports to measure cracking, to take a look at the quality of the roads. And my youngest son actually works on a team up in Gainesville that does that. And he and I were driving to North Carolina a few months ago to do some fly fishing and got into this very intense conversation about road cracking and how they measure it. And about 30 minutes in, we decided we might be the only two people in the country that wouldn't be poking themselves in the eye because of it would be less painful than talking about this. But 3R is not splashy, it's not bright, it's not shiny, you know, like BTU and some of our other projects, but it is integral to our program. And it's a large portion of our work program every year. And we have to do it for our infrastructure. We have to make sure our roads are in good shape. You all have driven on roads that aren't well taken care of, and you know what that's like. And you know, besides the fact that we need it for our infrastructure, it also gives us the opportunity to work with our local partners and be able to incorporate some of the things, as Mr. Huntman pointed out, safety features, other things that we can do with the 3R dollars that we have. Great example, we've been working with the city of Orlando and Commissioner Ortiz down in the Conway area, and there's a road there. They're having issues with speeding there. So they started talking to the department a year or so ago about solutions. So we looked at some solutions. We brought some things to them. You know, we used geometry to tighten up the lanes, to put horizontal deflections in, some things like that. We really forced drivers to slow down. And because there's a lot of cross streets there, we couldn't do all the access management we want. But because that door had been open, because we had those conversations, we've been continuing to work with the city and Commissioner Ortiz and work with the constituents in that area so we can try to find solutions that works for the community. I think I've said it here before. I said it to Commissioner Ortiz, you know, the old days of DOT coming in and jamming a project down on top of everybody are gone. We want to do the projects that are right for the community and what, you know, will be well received. So that early dialogue, the ability to work with you all in your communities really helps, and it really gets us to be able to put a project on the streets that's going to be well received. So currently, again, as Mr. Huntman said, the department is going to start calling for projects, meeting with our local partners to try to look for those projects that will go to design in fiscal year 25, go to construction in 27. So it's a perfect time for you all to get involved, remind all the folks in your areas that you represent. And, you know, it helps us collaborate together. It helps us get your vision out there. It's just creates a great partnership and gives us the ability to get some upfront early coordination to be able to put the best project we can out there. Thank you, Madam Chairman. That's it for my report.
Thank you, Mr. Atkins. And for clarification, I've already done this with you, but you're giving out the lists that are on the project list for resurfacing to give to our individual public works divisions and so forth.
It should be coming up very soon.
Great. Thank you. Any questions or comments for Mr. Atkins? Yes, Commissioner Moore.
Thank you for that attention to safety, because that's what we hear every day. And I know Commissioner Wilson would probably chime in if she had heard the beginning, but we're also hearing a lot about crosswalks, safe crossing at crosswalks. So I don't know if you are going to be developing some countermeasures or in your scope of work, beefing up those areas. We've had quite a few people hit and killed in my area and on State Road 436. And so just wanted to bring that up. It's not just the driver slowing down, it's the safe crossing.
Yes, ma'am, and that's one thing we try to look at. We look at those high areas where there's pedestrian crossings. You know, it's tough to get people to go down to a designated cross street. Sometimes if there's a big driver, like a huge apartment complex or maybe an employment center, they're just going to cut across the street. So we look for those areas to do some of, you know, the rapid flashing beacons, the crosswalks, things like that. So we're trying to look at those on each project, the resurfacing, to see if we can incorporate things like that.
Yes, you're recognized. Good morning.
17 completion. Could you have a quick update on where that project is?
I'm going to choose my words carefully because I remember I was here one time and we were talking about the express lanes and I committed us to a date and we made it, thank goodness, but I got razzed a little bit about that. Right now, I think we're looking at sometime in the summer to have that connection completed.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from Mr. Atkins? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move forward. Thank you very much for the update. And at this time, Ms. Lisa Smith for a roll call and confirmation of quorum.
Good morning. Arrington. Bates. Here. Bonilla. Castano. Here. Gomez Cordero.
Here.
Demmings. Dyer. Dowless.
Here.
Good. Green. Grieve.
Here.
Janer. Here. Lockhart. Moore.
Here.
Nelson.
Here.
Ortiz. Uribe. Wilson. Here. Woodruff. Zimbauer. Madam Chair, that concludes the roll call and we do have a quorum physically present.
Fantastic. We're going to move forward with the agenda review. Mr. Hutman, you're recognized.
Madam Chair, there are no changes or comments on the agenda.
Fantastic. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Zimbauer, a second by Commissioner Janer. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We're gonna go down to our committee reports. At this time, we're gonna start with the Municipal Advisory Committee. Mayor John Dallas, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. The Municipal Advisory Committee met last week on March 2nd. MAC approved our February meeting minutes. We also recommended approval of the amendment to the TIP that is on the agenda today. We received status updates on Metro Planner Orlando's safe streets and roads for all grant award and the annual traffic signal retiming program. The MAC then received a presentation from FDOT on the I-4 Beyond the Ultimate projects, similar to what was presented to the board in February. The MAC meets next on May 4th, 2023. This concludes my report.
Thank you, Mayor Dallas. Any questions or comments from Mayor Dallas? Seeing none, we're going to move on to the Community Advisory Committee. Mr. Jeffrey Campbell, you are recognized.
Thank you and good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. Community Advisory Committee met on February 22nd and recommended approval for the TIP amendment that's on the agenda for today. CAC members heard 3 presentations from Metro Plan Orlando staff, one on the recent grant from Federal Safe Streets and Roads for All, another one on traffic signal retiming programs, and on the bicycle pedestrian count program. We also heard a presentation from FDOT on I-4 Beyond the Ultimate and Moving Forward Florida. Members had several questions, including how South Florida Water Management District right of way is impacted by the work. Another one was a request about the progress of Beyond the Ultimate North. What kind of provisions are being made on I-4 for wildlife crossings? And a request for the start date of the I-4 and Sand Lake project. These questions were submitted to FDOT staff. CAC new member selection committee met on February 20th and arrived at a slate of 5 names chosen from a record-breaking 44 applications. There were a number of great applications, so decision was tough, but we got through it. The slate that's of the selection committee agreed upon is on the consent agenda for today, so we urge you to approve it. The next CAC meeting will be on April 26th, and we're hopeful to officially welcome 5 new members. Madam Chair, this completes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. And what a great thing to hear. 44 applications.
44 applications.
That's fantastic. That really means that people are finally starting to pay attention and recognize this transportation issue. I do want to go ahead and acknowledge any questions or comments from Mr. Campbell. Seeing none, thank you for your report. We're going to move on to the Technical Advisory Committee. Mr. Wharton, you are recognized.
Good morning, Madam Chair and board members. The Technical Advisory Committee met 2 weeks ago on February 24th. The TAC met in person with the committee members for a quorum to conduct our business. And our action items included approval of the TAC meeting minutes from the January 27th, 2023 meeting. And we approved a recommendation to this board to approve the amendment to the current TIP for the Fortune Road and Simpson Road intersection improvement project. Metro Plan staff provided the following presentations: an update on the U.S. Department of Transportation Safe Streets Roads, excuse me, for All grant, and following Metro Plan's, this is following Metro Plan's successful grant appreciate. I'll try one more time. Yeah, okay. Following Metro Plan's successful grant application to develop action plans for the participating jurisdictions. And if I may give a shout out to Metro Plan staff for landing that grant, that was impressive and we appreciate it. We also had a presentation on the update of the 2021-22 Metro Plan traffic signal retiming program. We also had the bicycle pedestrian camp program update and the ongoing work for the MPO planning process for the 23-25 program. And also received the same update from FDOT on the I-4 Beyond the Ultimate project for both the north and south sections. The next meeting for the TAC will be for April 28th. And that concludes my report, Madam Chair.
Fantastic. I agree. We have a great staff with Metro Plan. Any questions or comments, Mr. Wharton? Seeing none, thank you for your report. We're going to move on to the Transportation System Management and Operations Advisory Committee. Mr. Smith, you are recognized.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chairwoman, members of the board. The Transportation Systems Management Operations TSMO Advisory Committee met on February 24th. The following items were approved. The meeting minutes for the January 27th TSMO meeting were approved. And the TSMO members approved the recommendation to amend the fiscal year 23 through 27 TIP to include the Fortune Road and Simpson Road intersection improvement project. We had 2 presentations. One of them was by Mr. Hill, Metro Plan Orlando, and they gave a report on the 2021-2022 traffic signal retiming program, as others have already mentioned. So, and the infographic is in the handout that I would definitely take a look at. We had some good discussion on the traffic signal retiming with that. Additionally, another presentation by Mr. Joseph Gregory from Federal Highway Association gave an update on the FHWA planning for the project, planning for the Transportation System Management Operations Program. So our next TSMO meeting will be held on April 28th at 8:30 a.m. And that concludes my report, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Smith. Any questions or comments from Mr. Smith? Seeing none, thank you for your report. We're now going to move on to public comment on action items. Comments on action items can be made in 2 ways: in person at this meeting location and via Zoom virtually. I would like to start by acknowledging and asking Ms. Lisa Smith, do we have any public comment cards?
I have not received any.
Fantastic. And do we have any virtually any public cards?
There are no hands raised on the virtual side, Madam Chair.
All right, fantastic. Thank you. We're going to move forward to our consent agenda. I am looking for a motion.
Move to approve items on consent agenda A, B, C, and D.
Second, Janer.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Zimbauer, second by Commissioner Gomez Cordero. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. We're going to move on to other action items. At this time, we're going to recognize Mr. Jason Sartorio for the FDT amendment to FY 2022-23 through 26-27 TIP. Mr. Sartorio, you are recognized.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair and board members. My name is Jason Sartorio, Transportation Planner with Metro Plan Orlando. This morning, I have one tip amendment for you. Additional information regarding this amendment is located in tab 2 of your agendas. Today's tip amendment is due to construction cost estimate increases for the Fortune Road and Simpson Road intersection improvement project in Osceola County. As I mentioned earlier, additional information is located in tab 2 of your agendas. With that being said, unless there are any questions, we are asking for your motion of approval of the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to ask, are there any questions or comments on this topic?
Madam Chair, being that this is in my district, I just want to bring to the board's attention how very needed. This is a very dangerous intersection, and we're looking forward to this improvement for many years. So with that, I call for a motion for approval.
Fantastic. So we have a motion for approval from Commissioner Janer, a second from Commissioner Green, but we have one more comment by Commissioner Zimbauer before we do a roll call vote.
Thank you very much. I sincerely appreciate us finding a path in order to do this for our friends in Osceola County. I think that speaks volumes of MPO, the staff, and this board in general. So well done.
Thank you, Commissioner Zimbauer. I echo that anybody who's driven through there, so it'll be well received. So with that, I'm going to pass it to Ms. Lisa Smith for a roll call.
Bates,
Yes.
Bonilla, Castano,
Yes.
Gomez Cordero.
Yes.
Dennings,
Yes.
Dyer,
Yes.
Dowless,
Yes.
Good,
Yes.
Green, Grebe,
Yes.
Janer,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Ortiz, Uribe,
Yes.
Wilson,
Yes.
Woodruff,
Yes.
Zimbauer.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion carried unanimously.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. We're now going to move on to our other action, which is approval of acceptance of FDOT annual certification. Ms. Anna Taylor from FDOT will be presenting. Ms. Taylor, you are recognized.
Good morning, Madam Chair, board members. My name is Anna Taylor from the Florida Department of Transportation in the Planning Office. Each year in the month of January, we conduct an annual certification of the MPO. This is an opportunity to do a thorough review of the financial practices. We look at the accuracy and frequency of invoicing. This is also an opportunity for the department to meet with MPO staff and discuss any action items or corrective actions or recommendations in order for us both to do our business better together. This year, we conducted our meeting in February. I'm happy to report that you got 100%, no recommendations or corrective actions this year. And we'd really like to express our appreciation for MPO staff, for their cooperation, for their partnership, and for the open lines of communication in order for us to do our business effectively. And that completes my report.
Well, wonderful, 100%. Any questions or comments? Seeing none from Ms. Taylor, we appreciate the update. And this is also a voice vote. So we have a motion for approval.
So moved.
We have,
Second.
so we have a motion from Commissioner Zimbauer, a second from Commissioner Moore. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Taylor, for the update. We're going to move on to informational items at this time to acknowledge. I believe Mr. Hupman did you want to address any, like the letter and so forth?
Well, I will just make a comment. At the February board meeting, I was directed to prepare a letter of support for the Florida Forward Initiative. And we did that immediately and submitted it appropriately to officials in Tallahassee, and wanted to just draw your attention that it's in this package for your information, as well as a number of other letters of support for some raised grants and other applications for federal funding. No
Thank
other
you.
comments.
Thank you, Mr. Hutman. Do I have a motion?
Madam Chair,
Oh, yes, ma'am.
just
Sorry.
a quick comment. I want to thank Mr. Huntman and you for signing that letter promptly and sending it forward. Support for those projects in our region. With that, I call for approval or acceptance.
All right, so we have a motion. Of course, it was a pleasure. Commissioner Janer with the motion, Commissioner Gomez Cordero with the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We're going to move on to other business and presentations. At this time, I want to recognize the FY 2021-2022 traffic signal retiming program, which is in tab 5 of your book. Mr. Eric Hill from Metro Plan Orlando will be presenting to us. Mr. Hill, good morning, and you are recognized.
Good morning, Madam Chairwoman. Good morning, members. This is our 12th year of the Signal Retiming Program. This is a program that we are very, very happy with. And the reason why we do it, starting with why, right, is to improve traffic flow, reduce delays for drivers, and also reduce speeding. And we also want to see how we can use retiming to improve comfort for bicyclists and pedestrians on our roadways. This year, the retiming program included 17 corridors and 7 independent intersections. We did retiming in Orange and Seminole County. This year, we did not receive any requests from Osceola County. In Orange County, these are the corridors and intersections that we retimed. Here are the corridors and intersections we retimed in Seminole County. Now, some history here on how we collect the data. 12 years ago, when we started the program, we used to have folks ride in cars with stopwatches. So technology has evolved and we continue to evolve with technology. We started using Bluetooth data, and then we moved on now to connected vehicles, which I'm sure most people drive a car that is somewhat connected. So that's how we've been collecting the data. So, and to make sure that the connected vehicle data is useful, we do compare to the data sources that we have used in the past. So we are good with the data and we are looking forward to evolving into the future with more connected vehicles. And I'm sure at some point autonomous vehicles, right? So the measures that we use to look at whether we're doing good or bad are travel time, reliability, progression along the corridors, emissions, fuel savings, intersection delay, and pedestrian delay. So we have 59 corridors that had shorter travel times. 59% of the corridors had shorter travel times. 94% of the corridors had reliable travel times. We had an increase in emissions. We had an increase in fuel consumption. 35% of the corridors now have motor stopping fewer times. 29% of individual intersections had less intersection delay. 15% of the intersections had less pedestrian delay. Now, this is the big picture here, 350,000 hours increase. The program normally costs around 1.5 million, but this year, since we didn't have Osceola County, it's less. The net present value is 5.9 million. And the one measurement that we use and we always look at is benefit cost ratio. And historically, we've always had a positive benefit cost ratio. This is the first year where we had a negative. And there's a reason why. This is historical perspective on what I just spoke about. And when we started doing the retiming, we had this return because we hadn't been doing it. And so once we started doing it, we found this return. The other thing is we wanted to start with a 3-year cycle. So if we started with one quarter in year 1, in year 4, we wanted to go back to that quarter and retime it again. But things have changed. Sunrail started and travel used to go north-south, but with Sunrail stations, a lot of travel goes east-west now. And other things have happened, which have changed how people travel. So we haven't been able to consistently be on that 3-year cycle. So one of the causes for the negative benefit cost ratio is because some of these quarters were quarters that impacted schools. So access and egress to schools. We wanted to improve safety for students and for people accessing and egressing these schools. And, you know, I've made this presentation. This is the 5th presentation. And I always say it's kind of hard to argue with that we want to make sure that travel speeds are higher near schools. So these are the quarters in the 4 schools that were affected. The other reason, the impact of the pandemic on traffic volumes. When we collected the before data, we were at the tail end of the pandemic. When we collected the after data, everyone was rushing back to the office. So we had more trips than we had when we collected the data beforehand. I mentioned retiming at schools. We also increased pedestrian crossings at certain intersections. And again, kind of hard to argue with, you know, not improving pedestrian safety at intersections, but that also increased travel times. And the one thing we always want to not hear is citizen complaints. And so that's been done. So these are measures that we want to use. It's kind of hard to, you know, improve one without impacting the other. So it is somewhat of a juggling act, and we try and do the best we can. Given the history of this program and certainly the benefit cost ratio, I believe that will go back to positive because we do have quarters and intersections for Osceola County this year. And also we want to try and identify some other measures that can show the benefits of this program in the future. So Madam Chairwoman, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. I'm sure there are questions and comments. I'm going to start with Commissioner Wilson. You're recognized.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the presentation. I was wondering when you talked about the benefit cost ratio, and then there was a slide that had sort of what looked like an assortment of metrics. What falls into benefit? What are we counting as a benefit in the benefit cost ratio?
We're using the travel times, and that's monetized. We monetize the travel time, and that's what we use as the benefit.
Okay.
And that's why I mentioned we want to look at other
So that
measures to
is-
see
Gotcha.
what else we can get, what other value we can derive.
So maybe we need to redefine that.
Right. We just don't want to look at it as being able to move vehicles.
Right.
We want to have other value.
And I would say along one of those stretches that was out in District 1, there was a near fatality of a young man just riding his bike home from school. So it is sensitive to the community. And I would love, in fact, to have that, the PowerPoint to be able just to have it as a reference. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilson. Commissioner Zimbauer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Hill, for the presentation. Inquiry is involving the analysis of distracted driving and the travel times. How is that quantified or even analyzed?
Distracted driving.
Yes.
That's kind of hard to measure. Don't have an answer for you on that one.
I suppose we all see it, you know, travel times are increased because people are busy on their phones, either talking to somebody, texting, looking at their calendars and so forth. And I wonder, you know, are some of these become lopsided with timing changes based on those type activities? And is there a way not to try to quantify that? I realize that may be tough, but maybe with the cell companies interacting, I mean, the cell companies know when those phones are moving and so forth at a speed that typically is not, you know, humans walking.
Yeah. And you know, two things. One is there's so much going on inside vehicles now that it's easily to be distracted.
Absolutely.
Okay, because we spend so much time in them. They are being manufactured now to be just smartphones on wheels.
Right.
Right. So, you know, think about the pedestrian going across the street with his smartphone and he has his head down.
Right.
So
Works both ways.
We are doing some testing with the grant we received out at University of Central Florida and in Pine Hills section, looking at the connection between the vehicles in apps on phones, so that as pedestrians and cyclists are entering intersections, they're sending a message to vehicles to alert drivers and vice versa. That's one thing. The other thing is the distraction is not always inside the car. One that I always find somewhat interesting is when you have a silver alert, when you're on the interstate, and that silver alert is up there. I try to read it and see what it is. Well, that's a distraction. And it slows me down, it slows the person behind me, the person. So there are distractions outside the vehicle. And that's why I said, trying to get a hold of what causes the distraction in the relationship is kind of tough.
Yeah, I know that a lot of these cell companies and some of these app developers, data can be gained from the use of those that could be programmed into this technology, in my mind, whether that's the case or not. Just a thought process. Well, thank you very much.
And just to conclude, we have done some testing there. The Audi vehicles, they had an app inside the vehicle that was a countdown. Let the drivers know as they approach an intersection, how soon that light will turn red. And then vice versa, how soon the light will turn red.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Thank you. We want to recognize Mayor Dyer. Mayor Dyer, please.
So Eric, have you guys done anything with flashing yellow left turn signals? DOT has done a really good job, especially on the trail and some of the other larger state roads and installing them. And I've encouraged our staff to look and see where it would be appropriate for us. But I think that saves so much time rather than when you pull up and you can't turn left, but there's nothing coming from the other direction. So have you done anything with that?
And tied to this program? No. But it's certainly something we can begin to look at and look at how we can spread that technology across the region.
Having a flashing yellow turn signal so that if the traffic coming in the other direction does not exist, you can go ahead and turn instead of just sitting there with a red turn signal.
I know FDOT has quite a bit of those, especially on 441.
What's that?
No.
No.
Wonderful, Mr. Hill. Thank you for your presentation. I see any other questions or
Madam
comments?
Chairwoman?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Mayor Dyer, did I invite you into the response?
I'm just raising the issues.
Oh,
So
okay,
you guys
okay.
could put that on your list of things to take a look at.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Now I want to recognize Commissioner Moore. Did you have a question? Oh, hi, Commissioner Bonilla and then Commissioner Ortiz.
So if we could have a copy of the report as well, that would be great. But talking about distracted driving and stuff, we have ways that we've always been doing things where we put the different signs such as speed limits and things like that. I know when you go down a road, I'm trying to think, well, what is the speed limit on this road? And I don't see any speed limit signs because they were back by the corner. But when you're turning on an intersection, there's so many things going on that you're paying attention to, traffic coming, people crossing, that you're not looking for a speed limit sign at that time. So, just look at things like that, like maybe pushing those signs back away from the intersection so that people then when they're settled on the lane, then they can see them and know what speed limit to go. And, take away as many distractions from the intersection so that it's safer for the pedestrians and cyclists, and the drivers aren't too distracted to be able to see them. So there's a lot of things I think going on in intersections that distract people.
Commissioner, could you just position yourself?
Dismiss. I'm dodging Commissioner Ortiz here. Yeah, so I just wanted to say that there's just so many things going on at the intersections, and we've just been doing those things for so long that I think it's maybe time that we look at how we're designing our intersections and how we could take away as many distractions as possible. so that drivers could really focus on what they're doing there at the intersection. And I know there's been research that FDOT has done, with roundabouts and looking at that and how they're designing roundabouts to take away a lot of those distractions. But that, I'm wondering if you're doing that same type of research in other types of intersections as well.
No, we haven't, not tied to this program. We haven't.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Ortiz.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Mr. Hill. Information. When we talk about traffic patterns and distractors, we can avoid thinking of law enforcement, and they give us reports about traffic accidents, but do we have liaisons or do we speak to anybody in police departments to know what other items are going on out there in terms of when they come in contact with these drivers, what was causing some of these accidents, what investigations are produced, and are we gathering that information, that data from them?
Yeah, two responses. One is in the crash reports. If distracted driving is suspected, or if the operator is willing to confess that, yeah, I was on my phone or something distracted me. I was looking at a crash, which happens, rubbernecking, right? You look at a scene and you're not paying attention. And then the other is our community traffic safety teams. Each county has one, and they're made up of law enforcement, fire and rescue, Board of Education, FDOT, the jurisdictions, and they meet, I believe, monthly, as well as the media, towing and operators. They meet monthly and they have these discussions, and they go over these strategies of how to mitigate some of this, the distraction, but also how to, more importantly, how to mitigate the incidents and how to respond to them quickly.
So I have a question, and Mayor Demings, I think, I don't know how many months ago, I brought this up to everybody's attention, the fact that we have these riders out there doing their wheelies and distracting traffic in ways that we can't even fathom. What are we doing? And I don't know if Mayor Demings can help with this. What are we doing with law enforcement to help deter this kind of action? That's not your field.
I have not been doing any work on it.
Okay.
I kind of stepped away a little bit from the law enforcement stuff, but what I do know is that Sheriff Mina has put together an internal task force within the Orange County Sheriff's Office to kind of take a look at a partnership with some of the local agencies, with the Highway Patrol and with some of the other local police departments, and they are trying to use technology to help leverage, their ability to be able to do the enforcement piece, because as you know, it's very, very dangerous to even do the enforcement, because the individuals, they're lawless. They just don't stop for law enforcement officers when they try to stop them. So they are trying to use the automated license plate readers now to assist in holding the individuals accountable. So that's a work in progress. So I'm not sure where they are with it.
Thank you, Mayor. Madam Chairman, I suggest that we bring Sheriff Mina to give us a report of what's going on, because this is something that is really happening in our communities and we have to put an end to it. So
I think that's an excellent idea, and not to put Mr. Atkins on spotlight here, but Ms. Bobo has a great wealth of information. I've heard her speak many times, and she would probably be an equally, a lot of the questions that Mr. Hill is fielding, I've heard her speak about. So that sounds like a great idea, and Mr. Hutman has taken it down. So thank you very much. Any other questions for Mr. Hill? By the way, Commissioner Ortiz and Commissioner Bonilla were in sync. So. Mr. Green? Nope. Okay. Fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Hill.
You're welcome.
Appreciate your report and answering the questions. We're going to move on now to Safe Streets and Roads for All for an update. Ms. Taylor Laurent, you are recognized. Good morning.
Good morning. So at your last meeting in February, you heard an announcement from Mr. Gary Hutman that we were successful in receiving our Safe Street and Roads for All grant of nearly $3.8 million. to develop Vision Zero safety action plans throughout Orange, Osceola, and Seminole counties. So that's excellent news. I'm here to provide an update on what we're doing to get ready to implement those. So we're going to be using that funding to develop 1 regional plan, 3 county plans, and 19 city and town plans. And as we're looking at different jurisdictions within each of these Vision Zero safety action plans, we're going to be following a similar approach for each one. The approach is listed there on the slide. The ultimate goal is that each of our jurisdictions will have their own individualized Vision Zero safety action plan that will be the key to unlocking future discretionary grant funding for implementation projects. So when it comes to next steps, I know we're all very excited to get going. There's a few things we need to start with. And here at Metro Plan Orlando, we're actively developing a project management plan so that we can effectively and efficiently put together all of these documents at the same time. And we are also working with USDOT as well as FHWA to execute a grant agreement. So we're eligible to receive those funds, and that will also serve as our notice to proceed to get the work started. What we have asked our local partners to do and tasked our technical advisory committee with is establishing a local agency champion or main point of contact, really the project manager who's going to work with us hand in hand to develop your individual safety action plan and coordinate with us throughout the entire process. As we wrap up the project management plan and have a draft of that ready, and we know who that project manager will be from your agency, we'll start coordinating on what that scope looks like, as well as responsibilities that the MPO and our consultants will take care of, and what we'll be asking of our partners. So more information to come, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have today. Otherwise, I will actually turn it over to Mr. Gary Hutman.
Yes, good morning. Thank you. Before we pass it over to Mr. Hutman, I want to make sure, are there any questions or comments? Yes, seeing in the back, Commissioner Bonilla.
Is there a timeline?
We're hoping that the grant agreement will be executed sometime within the next 45 to 60 days. We're developing a schedule for how we can efficiently do all 23 of these plans simultaneously, as well as take advantage of the economies of scale of doing the regional plan, putting together the toolkits necessary to really help expedite and speed up the county and local plans. So we'll have more information coming soon as that becomes available. Of course.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'm going to pass this over to Mr. Hutman. You're recognized.
Yeah, thank you, Chairwoman Uribe. You know, I've announced how pleased we are at MetroPlan with the support and the participation that we had as we were developing this application and since then. But we did have some local partners who were a little bit concerned about the 20% local match, and some who said we can't make that commitment. But I'm reporting this morning that we will be bringing a budget amendment to the board later this year to cover that match for all of our partners. And this will make it much easier for us, less time consuming. We'll be able to get the project up and running quicker and give a break to all of our local partners. So we're very happy to do that. And as Taylor mentioned, this will then, once it's completed, will open the door for us either as a region again or individually to pursue implementation grants within the next couple of years. So we're very happy and pleased to offer that.
That's great news for all of our partner counties. Thank you very much. We appreciate the update. There was a point brought up, Carrie, by Commissioner Grebe here. If we're going to invite Sheriff Mina, we should invite the sheriff from Seminole County and also the sheriff from Osceola County, since we will be discussing this as a regional.
Okay, we'll do that.
Awesome. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to a great presentation here. The Best Foot Forward Annual Report by Ms. Emily Hanna. I'm a fan and she does a great job. So looking forward to the update.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, board members. My name is Emily Hanna. I am the Executive Director of Bike Walk Central Florida, your local nonprofit advocacy organization that administers your pedestrian safety program, Best Foot Forward. So I'm here today to talk about the work that we accomplished last fiscal year on the pedestrian safety program specifically, and then what other things that Bike Walk has been up to in the background. So last year, we held 4 high visibility enforcement operations at 55 different crosswalk locations across the 3 counties and issued over 900 warnings and citations. Now, most of these were warnings. And of course, when our law enforcement partners pull our drivers over, they remind them of the importance of watching out for pedestrians and cyclists who want to cross the road. But of course, we also think that there's an education component to that beyond those drivers that are pulled over. They often tell their spouses, their children, or others because they did get probably a ticket or a warning. So we think that 900 number is much greater. We also do some education with the program. We presented and attended over 91 events throughout last year, reached over almost 20,000 people. And this is not just the number of people that attend these events. We actually count the individual interactions, the conversations that we have during these presentations and at all of the events that we attend throughout the region. And we've distributed over 20,000 materials that talk about the driver safety law and that talk about pedestrian and bicycle safety. And then we monitored, collected data at over 90 crosswalks across the 3-county region and collected over 406 samples of that data and supported 18 projects within the region with that data. So lots of progress in our region. Last year, we actually launched the first Best Foot Forward Summit. Last year, the program turned 10 years old. We've been doing this program for 10 years, and so we wanted to celebrate those successes. We handed out some pedestrian safety awards related to the Best Foot Forward program, and we also invited Dr. Van Houten back, who was the originator of the methodology behind the 3E approach of the Best Foot Forward program. This is a snapshot of our enforcement partners and our enforcement operations taking place across the 3-county region. We work hand in hand with the Sheriff's Office and our local law enforcement agencies to conduct these enforcements, and they are fantastic partners to work with. I cannot thank our local agencies and Sheriff's Office enough for their participation and their support of the work that we do. It's very critical that we have them on board and have them understand the importance of pedestrians and bicyclist safety as well. So kudos to our law enforcement partners. Here's a snapshot of some of the educational events that we attended throughout the region. We not only go to these events, but we do presentations, and I even attend a lot of these events as well to try to educate. I'm sure you've seen me out in your community. Whoops. Here's a snapshot of all the crosswalk locations across the 3-county region that we've monitored. And right now, the average actually of last year is about 46%. So that means a little less than half of the drivers are actually stopping and letting people cross the road when it's appropriate. Obviously, we don't just jump out in front of a vehicle. That's not safe. We have a safe distance in which our data collectors cross the road, approach the driver. And of course, the driver has a couple different options. They can stop and let that person yield. They can slam on their brakes because maybe they're distracted, or they just kind of go around the pedestrian or like, what is that person doing in the road? So we try to take all of that information, both qualitative and quantitative, and we accumulate that and put that into what we call a CIP. It's a crosswalk improvement plan. We customize those for each of our partners every year and work hand in hand with those local engineering and planning departments to enhance and to make sure that countermeasure recommendations that we provide are implemented in the region. So I'm going to talk about a couple of those. In the city of Orlando, we improved Michigan Avenue and Cayman Way with the City Transportation Planning Department. They added some bulb outs, so they painted the curb, make it a little bit bigger so that the pedestrian is a little bit more visible on the corner, and also added a pedestrian refuge island, which gives a safe place for pedestrians and cyclists to wait for the other leg of traffic to stop. In Osceola County, we actually worked with the traffic engineering department there, which was absolutely fantastic. During our community outreach, we had a woman with MS, she was wheelchair bound, come up to our table and state that she couldn't reach the push buttons. She had to take her wheelchair, which was electric, off the pavement and push the push button with her forehead. So we took that information back to Osceola County. They contacted this woman. They found out her route to the grocery store and to the different places she needed to go. And they went out and installed these push buttons closer to the sidewalk. So now she has access to that. So we improved that one person's life and probably many, many more with that project. So kudos to Osceola County. I have to give a big shout out to the city of Castleberry. They implemented one of the first gateway treatments in the 3-county region. This is a school crossing right at Castleberry Elementary. And this crosswalk before had about 1 in 3 drivers stopping and yielding. Now, of course, when we collect our data, we do not go out and collect when the crossing guards are there. That's a little dangerous. So drivers tend to think that, well, if the crossing guard's not there, I don't need to stop. Well, that's not necessarily the case. So the city went and added the pedestrian gateway treatments, these little paddle signs on the side, added a stop bar to notate where the driver is supposed to stop their vehicle. And that increased almost overnight the driver yield rate. So now 3 out of 4 drivers stop and let people cross the road. So that was a big success story there. That project cost about $2,400 to implement. These are very inexpensive, low-cost engineering solutions that we can do to improve pedestrian safety in our region. One of the last projects that we supported was in the city of Kissimmee. The city of Kissimmee had a rapid year with including and installing rapid flashing beacons throughout their community. This was actually a school crossing and a trail crossing. So really important. We did a lot of enforcement there, and the enforcement partners said we needed to do more. So their planning and engineering departments installed rapid flashing beacons at this location. And again, you can see the increase in that driver yield rate almost overnight. We also supported some projects that were going on throughout the region. The city of Castleberry completed their Winter Park Drive Complete Street Study. We provided some data for them and participated in that study. Also in St. Cloud, they also completed a complete street study on 10th Street, and we were there helping to advocate for those people that walk and bike and roll. We also worked with Lighthouse Central Florida and a couple members that live in College Park, and we're having issues crossing the road across Smith, Edgewater Drive, and Princeton. And so we went out with the City of Orlando transportation planning team and made some immediate improvements so that those individuals could cross the road safer. And then again, in the city of Kissimmee, we went out and conducted pedestrian safety audits with their team and with FDOT. So other things that we were doing in the region throughout the year last year was obviously putting on our signature bicycle advocacy event, Bike 5 Cities. We merged Bike 5 Cities, dropped the cities and added 5 miles and 5 parks. These are more slower and shorter distance rides to try to increase the number of those that are interested but concerned, but really couldn't do 30 miles. I can't ride 30 miles on a bike. So I enjoyed and participated in the Bike 5 Miles event. And we are looking forward to doing that event again this year. The date will be October 14th, 2023. So hopefully you can join us. We also launched a Healthy West Orange Trails Connection. This group is a coalition of partners working together to enhance and connect trails and active transportation network throughout West Orange County. We are working with a health partner to identify opportunities to activating and providing these connections, and then looking at trends from health data to see how we are improving the health of the community, not only from a transportation standpoint, but from mental and social as well. Last year, we worked with Dr. Phillips, Inc. as they produced and started to develop the Packing District. We went in and identified trail connections within the Packing District and then external to the Packing District to connect to other regional trail systems, including Pine Hills and eventually the Coast to Coast Trail. So we're very excited to continue that effort and working with the city of Orlando to implement and hopefully add some of those trail connections to their trail master plan and seek grant funding and support from Dr. Phillips to build those trail connections in our region. Very exciting work. We also launched our Bike Walk Kids program. There was a distinct need and ask of our work to do bike rodeos, helmet fittings, and other things throughout the region. So we started doing those with our partners. We conducted about 4 or 5 of those and did so well that one of our educators won the Florida Bicycle Educator of the Year last year. That was Miss Ronnie Wood. I'm sure you've seen her out in the community. So we were very grateful to have great staff work with us to enhance and educate on pedestrian safety. And then last but not least, in the background, our Bike Walk board members have clocked over 370 hours of community service in the bike ped space. They've donated over 60 hours of professional advice. And our board members serve and work for a lot of the local consulting firms, have a lot of expertise in this region, in this area. So we were very excited to be able to calculate that and give that back to the community. We also are working internally on Bike Walk Central Florida. We have undergone an audit so we can receive and start going after larger grants to support our partners on larger projects. And in doing so, we received the Platinum Transparency status from Candid. And then most recently, we were awarded the Platinum Bicycle Friendly Business designation earlier this year. And we are really excited to help our other partners and businesses within the region become bicycle friendly businesses as well. So that really wraps up my presentation of what Bike Walk has been up to, and more importantly, what we've been doing with the pedestrian safety program, Best Foot Forward. And as always, thank you for your support of our organization and the work that we're doing in the region. Without your support, we would not be here. So thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Emily, thank you very, very much. You know, I'm a big fan, and I want to just say to anyone who is having a community event, she is amazing. I've had her at multiple events, and what I love the most, and something we see at Orange County a lot, is the bicycle safety. And she really breaks down. She's the one that taught me that you are actually able to ride your bike on a sidewalk. So, because she rides her bike on the sidewalk. I wanted to bring up, I'm really glad that you brought up the flasher issue, because I just wanted to share, I came to her and I said, I've got 2 areas where we've got significant pedestrian, crossing, and we're not getting cars to stop. And on the contrary, cars get angry when a car stops to let a pedestrian go by, especially to one of our biggest parks, Cypress Grove. So I think that it's important. I love the idea. I'm thinking that may work, but I also have the issue in Belle Isle.
Yep.
So I want to thank you for that. But I really love the kids bike thing. Let me know if there's anything else we can do. And if I'm always scared to let my 5-year-old ride a bike now because of cars,
Absolutely.
So I appreciate all you do and continue to do. Look forward to the summit. And I want to go ahead and recognize Commissioner Reed.
Thank you, Emily. And of course, also a huge fan and appreciate all that you do in the community. Just a question, because the 900 touches, that's great. When the officers are educating them, are they able, or is there an opportunity to actually give them a handout with some information? Because I mean, a lot of times you're pulled over by an officer, you may not be able to think clearly and remember everything that's stated. So I was just curious if that was part of your program, or if not, how do we help to make sure that occurs?
It is a part of the program. They receive a tear sheet along with their warning and or citation that educates on the issue in our region, why we have a greater number of pedestrian fatalities and serious injuries. And then also clearly illustrates the driver yield law by providing pictures of how to abide by that law in various scenarios at intersections or at mid-block crosswalks, and describes what a crosswalk is, both unmarked and marked.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilson.
Thank you, Emily. Also a big fan. I'm so grateful for the work. Can we go back to the slide that showed where the monitoring was, that had the map? Because I think, we had a wonderful day out at Horizon West, and it's totally like obscured by the graphic over here, which seems to happen to my little corner of the world. But there's 60,000 new residents for the last 10 years. And it was a community that was designed for walkable, bikeable. And unfortunately, the transportation design didn't necessarily translate. So they have intersections that they're still waiting on lights, big long ones where kids were really intended to walk to class. And so thank you for meeting me out there and trying to really educate people. But my question is and I appreciate all the work that you do with the trails, that we feel like there's so many victories along, getting these trails connected. So I'm going to start with the good stuff. How do I get your organization in on the design floor? I know I've chased you down a couple times when we go to design and I say, hey, I'm concerned about this. There's an elementary school here and a bunch of residents here, and these people are going to we can see the contact points way ahead of time. And we have the opportunity to get some bicycle facilities in, and we have the opportunity to get, crosswalks in from the start. And I've been able to kind of pull you in on one at a time here and there, but how do we bake that into the part of the process that we can get the input from the experts? Because I feel like so much of this work goes back to places where we didn't know as much about the design, and we didn't understand, the importance of providing bicycling as a transportation mode, not just as a recreation mode.
Absolutely. So right now it is unfortunately a case by case basis. We do try to communicate with our engineering and planning departments when they have projects come in and suggest that we review those plans. But oftentimes they don't necessarily think of external stakeholders when reviewing some of those internal projects. We've got better kind of relationships with some of our smaller partners, some of our larger partners we're still working on. And we try to interject and be advocates for you guys when we know that there's projects coming up like Pine Hills, like University Boulevard, International Drive, among others. But sometimes that, staff is very busy. They're very short staffed and a lot of projects going on right now. So sometimes that falls on deaf ears. So having that continual advocacy and having your support and reminding your staff that we are here to help and we will be willing and able to review those plans and provide that feedback is truly critical to help continue to move that needle.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I'm so glad. And I do think, I think it's interesting because what you mentioned were some retrofits, right? Where we're literally having to go back.
Yes.
I think in the areas of many of our counties and in municipalities that are in the growth pattern, we have a distinct opportunity.
Absolutely.
And so I think that one may be a little bit different and maybe trying to formulate some kind of strategy, if you don't mind working with us on that, to have, something that can be consistent that comes forward that says this is what this organization looks for in a walkable, bikeable community.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Great. Any other questions or comments? I think Commissioner Bonilla.
Yeah, I just want to support what Commissioner Wilson was just saying. I have an area that's, mostly rural on the east side. Also, I have the, Winter Park, downtown Orlando area too, where it's very dense. So I see a lot of retrofitting, I guess you would say, or problems where the roads have already been there and the population's growing. And then we're getting more walkers, more cyclists, and then we're having all that interaction between the two and needing to come in and make things safer. And so traffic engineering, like at one point I had the most constituent cases than out of all the districts. I don't think I'm the most anymore. I think we've gotten through a lot of them, but we have a long list of streets and intersections that need safety improvements. And then we have these new roads, like Commissioner Wilson was saying, that we have so much opportunity there. And because of all the constituent cases that we've seen, we know what the issues are and how to get ahead of them. And so you want to be able to have that in our new designs, and it's a struggle. And I know county staff, like I've been talking to them about one of the RCAs that we're working on, and they told me that they don't try to get involved or with the consultant. They try to let the consultant do the work, because they don't want them influenced by staff. And then we have the community engagement part where then they hear from, like partners like yourself and the public, and then they're supposed to go back to the drawing boards and redesign or fix things up based on that. In my case, I didn't have a lot of community engagement, so we're going to go back into that and try to, get the more of the community engaged. But like, how do we get, if the consultant's working individually without staff, how do we get that working together? Because I heard that you're trying to work with staff, but if staff is saying that they try not to interfere with the consultant, how do we get that all working together?
That is a great question. And I wish that we could solve that problem, because I think having those conversations among our consultants and among our staff is really critical to kind of getting ahead of some of these issues that we are likely going to see later on down the road when we have development occur.
virtually and I couldn't, so I had to left to get myself over here. I did. I normally use train, but I was afraid I'm gonna miss the train, so I used left for the first time ever coming up here. Well, we need 24 hours bus and train service every 15 minutes. And I need to have the bus stop over at the Estella Road in Lake Mary, the corner of Estella and Country Club Road, it's the South Country Club Road. This is between Seminole State College and train station in Lake Mary. Let's get us in there, please, okay? Because I'm tired of walking. My feet is kind of, hurting right now. Because I've been walking 1 mile each and every day, and that's 2 total. Hurts my feet. Hurts really bad. And also, we need to have this bus back over at the Oviedo Boulevard so I can get that in there, going to and from swimming without having to walk so much too. Please, thank you. But we can still keep the that little bus that we have now. The major lanes, I should say. And we need to have the bus down there at this and everywhere where there's no bus yet there. Because we got a lot of people in Lake Mary too. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. All
Madam
right.
Chair,
Yes, sir. Yes, Mayor.
currently I chair the Links Board and I'll take her concerns back to the CEO.
Sounds fantastic. Do we have any other public comment?
I have not received any more.
Do we have anything virtually?
I
No
don't
hands
see-
raised on the attendees side, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. That'll close our public comment in general nature. We have a board member comment. I want to recognize Mr. Green. You had a question? No, you're okay? Okay, well, fantastic. Are there any other board member comments? Seeing none, our next meeting is May 10th, 2023, and we are adjourned. Great to see you.
All right.
Okay. No, you got it.
Hey.